Relax, the keyboard is off, the press box is closed, and the mic is just getting warmed up as the guardian of the blue paint turned writer is about to enlighten us. The show where the writer is fresh off the presses and the ink is not dry. For this week's show, can the GM improve or disprove the Flyers this offseason? Welcome to the Hockey Writers Inc. Join Lance and Steel as we bring you all the latest on the Flyers.
Hi guys, welcome back to another edition of the Hockey Writers Inc. Hey Steel, I think we got somebody special along with us this time around.
Oh, I think we do. Your host, the great Lance Green, and I'm your co-host, SteelFlyers, and sitting in special guest this week. That's right, folks. We got the GOAT, John from Off the Wall Hockey. How you doing, brother?
Doing great. Thank you guys for having me. It's going to be awesome to be on the show, and I really appreciate you guys having me on. Can't wait to talk some hockey.
Yeah,
man.
No doubt.
Thank you very much for hopping on here, John. I really appreciate that. Just to let everybody know, folks, we'll have links to all of John's stuff here in the comment section or in the description section. So you'll be able to get all of John's great content, which you really need to get into, though, for sure. So we sure to check that out. Well, here we go, man. We got, can the GM improve or disprove the Flyers this offseason? Well, we're going to find out here, that's for sure. Just posted the other day on FlyersNittyGritty.com website, Draft Day Steals the Flyers should be watching. And all I have to say is, yes, please. The Flyers' needs this offseason are massive. And some Draft Day Steals would be just the order of business for the Flyers. And Lance, another great article, my man. So why don't you talk to us about some of these draft day steals? Let's start off with the first player that you have on your list, and that would be the 18-year-old winger, Ville. Oh, I'm probably gonna butcher it, but Kovanainu? I don't know.
Kuvanen.
John, what do you think? Is that close? Are we there?
Yes, he's got it.
Kuvanen, all right. Ville Kuvanen from Finland. So that's our first up.
All right. Well, a little backstory on this. The thought behind this article is, every GM comes into the, draft with a game plan. It has certain players that he's looking for sure, that he's got high on his board. Well, there's going to be another team drafting this year. There's always a 30-plus teams before that even that we're drafting. So the likelihood that you're going to be able to get that one guy on that draft that you want is slim. So you got to have a couple names. And with this theory in mind, I put together a couple of guys that may not be so high on people's list, but they're names that definitely will be standout stars another year or two from now, and already are starting to be, that are rising in some instances. So with that, with Ville, I picked this kid. He's 6 foot tall. He's 18 years old. He's a Finnish player. Okay. We did well, with some Finnish guys on our team in the past. Really haven't, drafted too many of them recently for the Flyers, but here we go. Basically, this kid is a phenomenal talent in my mind. I really think he's going to be a steal. He was nowhere on the radar earlier on in the year, but throughout this season and throughout definitely World Juniors, his stock has risen. Maybe not to the point that it even should be as of yet. Comparing him to a guy in the first round that's projected, who is a teammate of him at Kärpät, is Samu Tuominen. He's an amazing player as well, but Kuvanen is overshadowed by him, and in that sense. And I don't see why, really. If you look at the tape, Kuvanen had amassed 23 goals this season, 26 assists for 49 points in just 38 games played.
Wow.
Averaged a plus 29 average for the season, which is really good. And it's defensively responsible players, kind of like what I was comparing to Tampa Bay's article. You know, when I did that article previously,
Yeah.
Tampa Bay looks for those type players, and there is obviously been successful with those type players, having a whole roster full of them. When you look at those numbers compared to Samu, very little difference. He had 15 goals, 16 assists for 31 points in 30 games played. Now, he played in less games for that team, the junior team, because he was able to give him the chance to jump up to the Liga, which is the top league over there.
Yeah.
And he did absolutely nothing, total no points while he played in the Liga without Kuvanen. There's the start of the judgment. And if you look at the tape, you know, at the World Juniors, both players had great numbers. I think, I think one had 10 points and one had 11. Okay, so this guy is looked at as a second or third round pick at best, where the other guy is rated all the way up at a first round pick. So I think that teams will be liking this player if they select him. He does a lot in the way he's hungry. He's a very hungry player. He goes out and competes on every shift he's out there. He's that will to win is there, and it reminds me of a young Mike Richards in my mind.
Oh wow!
Maybe not playing the same position, but that same hungriness that he brings to the ice every time. So that's why I like him and would like the Flyers to take a look at him if their players are that they were going to select or maybe off the table at that point.
Got you, John. I'm interested to hear what you think about Lance's idea here. Now you're talking about this would be like a first round. This would be if the Flyers actually use their 13th overall pick.
I don't know if it'll even be a first round. He may slip to the second round.
Okay.
Or possibly early third round, depending. Okay. He is a little light, weight wise. So, he's not going to be ready.
He's young though.
He's young for sure. He's not going to be. It's going to take a year or two probably for him to get there. So,
but I'm interested to hear what John. What do you think about with Billy here?
I think there's a lot of upside here. I think it's very likely he goes in the second round, and I think a team that takes him in the second round could get a first round talent in that second round with that pick, because there's a lot of skill here. And one of my favorite things about this player that when you read up on about him is that he has this attacking mindset all the time, where he always wants the puck on his stick. He's not afraid to go get the puck. He will drive into traffic. He will drive to the front of the net. He's just an attacking player. And that is something that, that can take you places in the NHL. And if you don't have that, you're going to get stuck on the perimeter, and it's going to, you're not going to be able to reach the levels that you would be able to if you did have that attacking mindset. So I think mentally that is a great thing to have, especially in a young player who's still just 18 years old. A lot of skill, obviously. He was over a point per game in Finland last year. I am really excited to see what numbers he puts up this coming season, because he is going to be moving up to Liga, which is the top league in Finland. And I really want to see what he can do at that level. There's definite talent here. There's definite potential. I look at this as a player with a really high ceiling who maybe isn't quite the guarantee to get to that ceiling that you would look for in maybe like a first round pick, but somebody that could potentially have that first round talent in them if they develop properly. And I really think he could be a steal of this draft, and you could get a really good player, possibly even late in the second round if you with this guy.
And what I picked him for, because of like John said, he's got that that go-getter. He's going to get to where he's got to be. And we have a bunch of different perimeter players on the Flyers. We have a bunch of different guys that love to pass the puck, but nobody really that wants to shoot it. And he wants that puck, like you said, on his stick at all times. And we really need that piece into the Flyers nucleus to start building more guys like that. So,
man, like I said at the very onset of this article, and one of the main reasons why I said yes, please, was because of this very player right here, because of exactly with what John you said with his tenacity and his go-getter mentality, and then Lance with what you said with the numbers that he was able to put up and the style of play that he has and the type of player that he has. Look, he's 18. He's probably gonna put on, if he does something like what Joel Farabee did in his, that first summer in between, where he went out and bulked up and hit the gym and put on 15 pounds of bulk. If he does that, and he might even still grow another inch or two. He's still only 18. You know what I'm saying? He's still going to potentially get bigger. So I like starting at that base 6 foot, almost 200 pounds, especially for that type of game that he plays with that type of tenacity and that type of go-getter mentality. You need a little bit of a bigger body and a thicker frame to be able to handle some of that pounding, because of the way those guys are, especially with the way the play is now, where you see a lot of players cross-checking in the back, especially if you're standing in front of the net. So you need to be a little bit more than just a wiry guy so you can handle that little bit kind of pounding, you know what I mean? And so I like the upside. I think there's a lot of upside with him too. Okay. And I really appreciate what he brings to the table as well. And we're all about those type of guys that Flyers need somebody that shoot first. We have a list as long as the arm of guys that know how to pass. Yeah. So great. All right. So I want to move on to the next one. Okay. And this is this is another one that a lot of Flyers fans are going to say that the team really covets, is that right-hand shot defenseman. And the player that we're going to focus on here is the one that Lance picked out, Jack Barr from the United States Hockey Leagues. Mm-hmm. And tell me, Lance, what is it about Jack that makes you want to, bring it to me, man. Sell me. Come on.
I got you. There's a lot of good defensemen, not great defensemen. I think there's one or two in this draft that are great, but there's a lot of good defensemen in this draft, but not a lot that are right-hand shot. And that is something that the Flyers so desperately need. We all know that. We've all been preaching that for some time. We're still Chuck's still looking for one to play on the top pairing. We all know that. Maybe we'll cover that a bit later. But Jack Barr plays for the United States Hockey League's Clark Cup champion Chicago Steel. This is a great young team. They seem to find great young talent year in and year out to come join their club. And it's just a good franchise overall. They develop some good players. Now, he is 18 years old. He is 6'2", 195 pounds already, okay? He is not that stereotypical today's NHL defenseman that is going to go up and try to school for 9 out of 10 times out on the ice. He is going to stay home. He is going to protect the front of the net. He's going to clear the front of the net. Okay. He is going to, like you said, Steel, have that stick in somebody's back and push them out, push on the back of their skates and get them off balance. If a shot is coming in from the point, he's going to lift that stick up. And the greatest thing about him is he doesn't have cement on his feet, guys. He skates around and he does not stop moving his feet the entire time he is out on the ice. And that is what I really like about this kid. He is projected to be a 3rd or 4th round player. And he is committed to go to Harvard, which a lot of his teammates
Wow.
from this Steel team are. So they're just going to stay together and continue to develop. So I really like this kid. And, he may not be so high on other teams' draft boards because everybody is looking for that guy that can put up 40, 50 points from the blue line. But we don't need that. We have plenty of those guys that want to run down the ice. We need somebody that's going to stay back and protect Hart and hopefully, get those guys out from in front of the net for sure.
Man, you notice I was flipping through, right? Because that was just a lot of check boxes.
Yeah.
That I think he would check off for the Flyers. What do you think, John?
Absolutely. And the thing that jumps right out to me is that he already has an NHL body at 18 years old, and he's only going to get stronger from here.
Yeah.
I mean, you a kid that's 6'2" and almost 200 pounds already. Elite Prospects has him listed at 194. I like to add 15 pounds on because for most players, when I look at them, pre-draft, because when you get into an NHL weight training program and get into an NHL nutrition program, these guys can put on some serious muscle. And you're looking at a player that when he's playing in the NHL, you're looking at 6'2", 6'3", probably about 210. And that is a defenseman right there. And obviously the Flyers' issues on defense this past season were obvious to everybody watching the game. They need somebody like this. Now, he is not going to come in and play in the NHL within the next couple of years. This is a developmental project here. Going to Harvard, I'm not comparing him to Adam Fox, but Adam Fox went to Harvard. Harvard is a very good hockey school. They've put a good number of players into the NHL, especially in the last few years.
Yes.
They can develop there. Their coach is Ted Donato, former NHLer.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. They're not going to rush him. I think he probably plays 3, maybe all 4 years at Harvard. But when you get him at 22, 23, you're going to have a really solid defenseman, two-way guy who has the skating ability to produce offensively while also staying at home and taking care of things in his own end. And I think there's a lot of upside here. And obviously, you're looking at down the line a little bit, but this could be a really good mid-round pick for the Flyers if they go in that direction.
And I think Lance, you nailed it on the head when you called this draft day deals or steals, or because this would definitely, this would fall into that category of a steal or a deal, because he's definitely a higher round talent. Mm-hmm. That is going to probably go in a lower round. Okay. I did get a chance to watch him a little bit here in the past World Juniors. Okay. With the U18 there for the World Juniors. And I really like this player. I really think he would be a good player for the Flyers. All the points that you guys have made have just made me just shake my head and go, yeah, this would be a perfect play. But I like, but I like what you said about this though, John, because you're right. He needs to grow into his body because he is only 18 and he is going to be that guy. Like, he's not going to be that Cam York type of guy. I think he has that same kind of mature game that Cam York does. Okay. But I don't think, I agree with John. I don't think he's ready yet, because he hasn't kind of matured into that spot. And if you get 4 years of him at Harvard, and then when he comes out at 22 years of age, hot diggity dog smacks, that's going to be a good player.
He's going to Harvard, and like John said, that school, maybe 10 years ago wasn't what it is today for hockey. It's becoming definitely more of a powerhouse, and they're getting the players in there. Mm-hmm. I think Coronado's going there, who's going to be a first-round draft pick, hopefully maybe even a flyer. We need a shoot-first guy. And, so is
We can dream.
yeah, the other 100-point player that Chicago Steel had this season, Farrell or whatever. So the team is starting to get some definite players, and they're going to be contenders up there and developing a good program for sure up there.
Well,
Yeah.
John, you get first row seats to Harvard. What?
Barr may not be Adam Fox, but he could be Ryan Lindgren. And if you get a Ryan Lindgren type player who, played at college and now is Adam Fox's D partner in New York, I think if you get that kind of player out of him or anything close to that, that would be a win, especially for a mid-round pick.
Yeah. I think that's what we're looking for, and that's what I was going after with selecting this player, because we have a lot of guys like Steele said. We have Provorov, we have Myers, we have Sanheim, we have Cam York now, all who like to take it up the ice and try to put it in the back of the net. Not every single defenseman needs to be that. You need a yin and a yang. And, I think that's a good example that you pointed out there. He is that player that's going to be a support player. And, he's going to stand out to the intelligent fan that is able to see just more than the offensive side of things and what he does while he's out on the ice. It may not be on the stat sheet, guys, but it's going to count towards the W's for sure.
Hey, man, them Ivy League guys, man, you know how to do it, right? You know how to do it, right? Okay. All right. Last one, according to the article here, was another particular situation here I think that the Flyers are in desperate need of, owing to the list of carousel goaltenders that should be leaving or could be leaving or aren't leaving, or we're not sure really what's going on with the goaltending in Philadelphia. So, Lance, in this article here, you point out a goaltender, 20-year-old Cameron Rowe from the Wisconsin Badgers. And, sir, you really do not need to sell me on him. But give me some of his awesome numbers and why he would be a good steal in this year's draft.
Okay. So, first off, I think that he's going to progressively get better. And, I don't know, this season he really came into his own. He didn't really have it all together for Team USA when he first came into it. But since coming to Wisconsin under Tony Granato, he's really put it all together. And yes, he is 20 years old, and that's why I'm saying that he's going to be probably, if he is at all, a late round pick, 6th or 7th, even. There's a lot. This goalie draft is 2 potential really good starting goaltenders coming out of this draft. But after that, it falls off extensively. Yeah. He's older, he's 20, he's playing in college ranks, and that's great. But what he's doing there this season, he came in as a freshman, and he pushed aside a senior who should have been getting all the starts there in Robbie Bindot. But he created a tandem scenario there. He forced his way into the net early. They thought he was going to probably take over this upcoming season, but he made a name for himself enough to be able to get some starts. And during that time, he had a 2.05 goals against average this season and a 9.33 save percentage, which is pretty darn good. But if you compare that, he had a record of 9 wins, 2 losses, and 1 overtime loss. He had 2 shutouts during that time. Not a whole lot of games to go off of for sure, but just his numbers during that time were impressive. Now, if you look at his goaltending partner for Team USA when they were there, Spencer Knight, who we all know is fastly risen and is already looking to play in the NHL, next season, as well as what he did this past season. But Cameron came in and he was 4th in the whole nation in win percentage with a 7.92 win percentage, Knights was 5th with a 786. All right, so he topped Knight in that. He
Same
also
number
topped,
of games.
not same number of games, I don't think, but just win percentage. For the amount of games he presented and played in, he won a larger percentage of them. Yeah. Like I said, this next season, this is why he's going to be a steal. This next season, he's going to take control of the net in Wisconsin and have the majority of the games. Yeah. Where he pushed his way in as a freshman already last season. Now, Rowe also ranked 4th in the nation in save percentage this past year. He had that .933 save percentage. Spencer Knight ranked 5th in the nation overall with a .932. Rowe ranked 13th in the league with a 2.05 save percentage versus Knight's 217 GAA. So it just goes to the fact that he has potential there. He has potential there. And I think Chuck Fletcher really hasn't selected any goaltenders in his time there besides Roddy Ross, and that was a failed experiment in my mind. They already didn't sign him, and now he's a free agent. So he's got to bring in some goaltending. He obviously needs to sign a legit backup goaltender, and I think that Cameron here, if he doesn't get drafted, he's, in my mind, is right up there with undrafted college free agents with Dryden McKay. Now, I really like Dryden McKay. I've written about him before. I think the Flyers should definitely sign him out of Minnesota State. But with that being said, if they're not already drafted, not being under people's rights, I think Cameron Rowe really could be a draft day steal if they selected him even in the 7th round. So. Right.
I'm interested to hear, John, what your take is on this particular goaltender here, because we've talked a lot about goaltending is a huge part, especially in hockey. And these days, you can't necessarily count on a goaltender, your starting goaltender, to go out and play 60 games a year. You need that second goalie and, things of that nature. And so I'm interested to hear what your take is on Cameron Rowe here from the Wisconsin Badgers.
This is a really intriguing player because he has never put up numbers before like he did this past season. If you scroll through his statistics, his goals against average has usually been over 3. His save percentage has always been under 900. And then this past year at Wisconsin, he just comes out of nowhere and drops a 933 save percentage and a 205 goals against on everybody. And it kind of leaves you like, where did that come from? Mm-hmm. But with that being said, we see late bloomers among goaltenders, I think, more than any other position in hockey, where the development curve with goaltenders is a lot steeper. And it takes some guys a longer period of time to really get themselves honed in and, mastering that position because it is such a difficult position to play. I think he's definitely could be worth a 7th round pick. At that point in the draft, the percentage of 7th rounders to actually play an NHL game is so minuscule that why not take a shot? Like Lance said, he forced his way into the net this season when he was not expected to be playing much for Wisconsin, and he ended up playing in 16 games. And that was because of how well he was playing. And I'm really interested to see, I'm a big college hockey fan. I watch a lot of college hockey, and I'm really interested to see what he looks like this season in his 2nd year, now that he's kind of made a name for himself and more people, are expecting more from him. But he put up fantastic numbers this past season. Save percentage is always a big one for me. Because I think, record, the team has a lot to do with that and how they're playing in front of you. Even goals against, if you have, porous defense in front of you, your goals against is going to be high no matter how good you are. Save percentage is the one that I look at and say, like, is the goaltender stopping a large number of the shots that he is facing? And to put up a 933 this year, that is impressive, especially when, that is, significantly higher than any other save percentage you've put up at any point in your career. So he seems certainly to be a late bloomer. I don't even know if you would have to use a draft pick on him. I honestly think there's a good chance that he could be a free agent, unsigned free agent out of college, and that you could pick him up that way.
Yeah.
But you can never have too many goaltenders in your organization. That's one thing that that's been that way for years in hockey. You can never have too many goaltenders, and we see late blooming goaltenders a lot. And someone like this is definitely worth taking a shot at. And you see what he looks like in the AHL, and then you see if he can make that step to the NHL afterwards, depending.
See, that's exactly what I was thinking too. If we pick up a goaltender in as a free agent after the draft, or whatever the case is, or however that goes, even if we do have to spend a 7th round draft pick on him, you know what I mean? And you know what? I wouldn't have a problem if it was a 6th round draft pick either, to be real truthfully honest with you, especially because of what John pointed out. Sometimes you get those goalies that are those late bloomers that, look, he's 20 years old now and he's just starting to get it. Okay. And he's playing in Wisconsin. That's a Big Ten college. And so he's not playing against slouch teams. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I really like this goaltender, Lance, and I think you kind of sold me on him.
So yeah, to hit on both your points here, my theory behind selecting him late, I do agree that he might not even be drafted if the Flyers didn't draft him. But what would it do? It would let us retain his rights.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the big thing here, because
Absolutely.
if he has a phenomenal year, like he's showing he maybe could for a good Wisconsin team, a lot of teams then will be knocking at his door. Okay. And if we have his rights, then they can't do it for at least a couple of years, unless he, and he has to, at least try to sign with us if he wants to play in the AHL. So that is my mindset there. It's kind of, grabbing him with a 7th round pick and saying, hey, if he develops, then great. But, if he doesn't, I don't want to regret it in that sense, where, it could have been an opportunity to grab him and have his rights. And then, instead of begging him to come sign with us later. So,
yeah.
It's always better to have something that you don't necessarily need than to want something that you don't have. You know what I mean? So speaking of that, we're going to take a quick little break here. We're going to talk about our great sponsors, and we're going to show you a quick little commercial here from our great sponsors. We would like to thank Canine Country Club Resorts for being our sponsors, and thank you very much for doing that. You can check them out on the web at www.cccresorts.com, or you can check them out on Facebook. They got a lot of great things going on right now, especially summertime. Give them a call, get some pool time scheduled for the puppies, and make sure you get your daycare taken care of, and the groomers too. So make sure you get them all nice and happy and groomed and in some pool time. So there you go. Check them out. We'll be right back after this. Thank you very much to our sponsor. Greetings. This is SteelFlyers from the SteelFlyers All Sports Network, and we have 2 very special guests. We are delighted to be joined by Tracy Musser and Nicole Howard from the Canine Country Club Resorts. Tracy and Nicole are both managers for CCC Resorts and work at the Windsor or at the club, one of 2 locations both in Manheim, Pennsylvania. Congratulations on your 30th year anniversary of being in business. Let me start off by saying this. SteelFlyers stands behind this company 100%. Taking care of SteelFlyers furry friend for the last 2 years now, and they are a one-stop shop for everything your furry friend needs. In fact, let's find out what our friends at CCC Resorts offer. Nicole, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
Doing great, thank you. What are some of the great boarding services that you guys offer, and what do we have to do in order to get our furry friends taken care of when we are unable to travel with them?
Well, we like to bring everybody in for a tour first. That way they can see the behind the scenes, they can see where they stay, they can see where they play, and then we explain all of the fun things that we can add on to their reservation, whether it be one of our packages, either a nature walk, a ball time, or even a cuddle time.
Oh, wow, that sounds great. Boy, it sure sounds like a resort to me. So how are you today, Tracy?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Tracy, tell me, is it true that you guys have both an indoor and an outdoor pool at the Windsor location?
It is true. We've got one of each, so we're able to offer year-round swimming. The indoor pool is a great option for dogs who are swimming for therapy or rehab. It's got that sloped entry so they can wade into the water. Our outdoor pool is a little bit larger, and it's 4 foot deep the whole way across. And both of them are saltwater pools, so it's really easy on the dog's skin and coat.
Wow, that's very awesome. So then during the summer months, you have a much deeper pool outside and then a sloped entry shallow pool indoors for the dogs. Tracy, tell the folks how we can get some pool time.
Well, the first thing everyone does is come for an intro swim. We use that time to make sure the dog is comfortable in the water. We make sure they know how to get out of the pool safely, and we go over all the pool rules and etiquette with the clients as well. After that, they're able to schedule private appointments where they have the pool to themselves, or they can invite friends and have a whole group swim going on.
So after a dip in the pool, then it would have to be off to the groomers, right? I mean, our furry friends cannot go out looking their best. Nicole, what are some of the great services your top-notch groomers provide?
Our groomers, they specialize in full service grooms. We can do the basics, whether it be just a bath and a brush out or a blowout. Or for the extra pampered pooches, we can do nail dremels, we can do deodorizing soaks, and also facials.
Wow, man, that sounds like a resort if you ask me. Tracy, I know one of the main programs here at CCC Resorts is the WAGS program. The SteelFlyers dog is enrolled in this program. So why don't you tell the folks what is involved in this and how they can get enrolled?
Yeah, the WAGS program is our primary daycare option at the Windsor. It's designed to be a structured program for people who are looking for a set routine for their dog. They all come on the same days each week, which allows them to have set friends, and we know exactly what's going on with each group. So we do a little bit more activities, and we build more into their daily routine there. But we've got other daycare options as well for people looking for a little less commitment. We do an hourly care where you can drop them off and just pay by the hour. We also do a day stay option, which is great for the dogs that prefer human friends instead of making friends with other dogs. And then we have a traditional daycare option as well if you're looking for the occasional outing for your dog.
Wow, there you have it. A full service groomer, a daycare program, and an indoor and outdoor pool. What more could you ask for? Sure seems like CCC Resorts has everything covered. Remember, DOG, depend on God. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Hockey Writers Inc., where we are joined by our great and wonderful host,
Lance Green.
and we've got a very, very special guest along with the show for you this week, and that's right, man. We got John. How you doing, John?
I'm doing awesome. Great to be here. This is a lot of fun.
Super. Thank you very much for hopping on here, John. We really appreciate it. John is from Off the Wall Hockey, and we'll have all of his contact information down there in the section there so you guys can check him out and follow him. And we brought on John because I wanted to get his take on some of the articles that Lance wrote, and we're going to get into that very next article here.
Yeah.
So yeah, really appreciate you hopping on here, John. So
never hurts having a good another good hockey mind join us here for the roundtable discussions we have here.
See, that's why we call this the Hockey Writers Inc., right? We bring all the professionals in, right? See,
Yeah.
That's how that works, right? See, we bring in all the professionals. All right. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, article number 2 that the great writer extraordinaire has just posted out onto the Flyers Nitty Gritty website just the other day to the previous article that we were speaking about. And this is the Flyers rumor roundup. What's true, what's false, and what should they really pursue? And all I have to say here is that yet again, another article that just hits all the points. I mean, you always just seem to know right when to put out an article about the exact subject that's going on, dude. It's like you have a knack for that, man. Like, what? Really?
I don't know. Go figure.
Yeah, go figure. All
Yeah,
right.
so yeah, I mean, definitely, with this article, obviously rumors are buzzing right now. It's the off season. Everybody's hoping and wishing for different players,
Oh
and
yeah, hoping and
you
wishing.
know, I thought it'd be wise to go through on what's actually the team's doing. What rumors out there are, just dispel them about people that are just throwing names out there to throw names out there, and what I think they should actually jump on. So.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's break into the Captain Obvious here. All right, and what's proven to be true over the last few weeks here since the end of the season for the Flyers?
Sure. So, what is true is obviously the big rumor is of Columbus Blue Jackets Seth Jones. Now everybody knows the team is after a right-hand shot defenseman to play on the first pairing. They have been after Seth Jones for some time. With that being said, it has seemed to fall through. Um, and I think we'll get into that in our next little segment more. But that is a name that's been out there that the team has definitely been linked to and been working very hard to try to acquire. But I don't think that he's going to be willing to re-sign here. So I think that's
Yeah.
where the wall is hitting.
Okay. All right. Well, what would you think, John, if Mr. Seth Jones? I mean, I don't really, honestly, I wouldn't. I I would not necessarily me myself be pursuing him. What do you think about if Seth Jones were to come to the Flyers? I mean,
I'd be very weary of going after Seth Jones. The decline in his game over the last 4 years and just like the steady downhill each season
yeah,
is very worrisome. Now, obviously, there is upside talent there. He's only 26 years old. Feels like he's been in the league forever. He's still only 26.
I know.
The talent is obviously there. This is a guy that put up 57 points and really was in the Norris conversation 4 years ago. Unfortunately, though, his numbers have steadily declined since then. This past year, he only had 28 points. Obviously, it was a shortened season, but he was also a minus 18. His defensive game was not where it needed to be. Even in 2019, 2020, it wasn't the best year for him. I think Zach Werenski has definitely taken over as the number one guy with the Columbus Blue Jackets. I still think Jones can be an effective player, and I think he can be a really good top four defenseman if he goes to the right situation. The issue that I would have is I feel like if any team at this point were to trade for Seth Jones, there's a very strong possibility that they end up severely overpaying. And that is something that you do not want to do, especially if you're in a team like the Flyers, where you're not trying to just rip it all down and start from scratch. You're trying to make some good, smart moves to get yourself back into a playoff position next season. You don't want to overpay for a guy like Seth Jones. I think the trend is too downwards for my liking, and it's just something I'd be very cautious about.
Yeah, I think this season I will, I wouldn't want a negative player. We have a lot of those on our blue lines. I am a goalie, so I do think that the plus minus stat is downplayed by the league a lot. I like a guy, instead going out and just getting a free agent at Adam Larson. I think he's a solid defenseman, plus player, hitter, block shots, everything.
Yeah, I like that pick better. See, that's what I was going to say. I would much rather not go after Seth Jones at all, and I'd much rather have Adam Larson. That's what I was going to go.
I agree. I'd rather just sign Larson than give up assets to go and get Jones.
Tons of assets, because it was rumored to be pretty lengthy list of assets for Seth Jones. Obviously, Blue Jackets GM is well versed in getting rid of star players, mostly because they hate their coach, so much up there. But they got rid of him, so we'll go on from that, I guess.
Like I said, man, I would much rather have and the fact that Jones didn't want to agree to sign an extension.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's not that I don't have a problem giving up assets for a player that's going to help the team, but if you're not willing to then immediately agree to an extension, why am I giving up all these assets for you? Okay, and that's the end of that. Conversely, what has proven to be not true over the last few weeks since the end of the season for the Flyers?
So what has not been true? A lot of people are throwing names out there like crazy. First off, Johnny Gaudreau is not coming to Philly, guys. He's working on an extension with Calgary as we speak. I know he is a local player, and teams, the people around here love him, but I don't think he's coming. I think him and Matthew Tkachuk, who I like, who was rumored out there as well, who the team now has come out and said is definitely false. And the Calgary Flames are not going to be willing to get rid of him either. I think that they're building off of those two players. So,
wow. Okay. Well, there you go. I don't know. I haven't really heard of any other like crazy names. John, have you heard of any other like crazy other names that are linked to the Flyers other than the big Seth Jones that we were just talking about? I don't know too many other names. It doesn't seem like at all.
No, I think most of the Flyers talk has been very Seth Jones related. I have, now that he's going to be on the market, I would like your thoughts on this. As Flyers fans, Ryan Suter has become available, and I know he's a left shot, so not exactly what the Flyers are really looking for, that top right shot guy. But with how bad Philadelphia was defensively last year, I think a shutdown guy like Ryan Suter, if you can get him at a lower cost now that he's been bought out by Minnesota, I think there's a lot of teams Ryan Suter would fit really well on, but Philadelphia is definitely one that came to mind for me, and I was just kind of wondering your thoughts on Suter possibly signing.
So yeah, since his coming in, I think Suter's name is definitely rising up, especially linked with Chuck being the person that signed him in Minnesota. Originally, he went to Minnesota because he's from there. Obviously, everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Like you said, we're looking for a right-hand shot defenseman here, guys. And is that adding to the list of just big names out there that the Flyers fans are going to be wanting the team to acquire? He's a solid NHL defenseman for many, many years. Shutdown defenseman, like you said, like we need. He's not an offensive guy, but he plays the left-hand shot. I think, only bringing him in would block guys coming up like Igor Zumla for us and Cameron York, who are both left-hand shots as well. That's tough. Now, if Sanheim were to get moved out or something like that in a trade, then bringing in Ryan Suter to replace him by all means. But I can't see the team spending money on a left-hand shot defenseman when we have so many in our system. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I like what you point out there, Lance, and I can see why there would be a want for this particular type of player, because he does have history with Chuck, and Chuck was the one that signed him to his monster deal that he's being bought out of right now. But I'm going to have to agree with Lance. I would much rather not bring in another left-hand shot defenseman. Yes, he does bring some good things to the table. He does bring that veteran presence. He does bring that shutdown defenseman. But I think we do have enough players in our system that would provide that particular type of player. You know what I mean? So I don't know what there's so many other names that are out there, that have been, you mentioned them in your article, Matthew Tkachuk, Ryan Ellis, Matt Benning, Dante Fabro. I mean,
Yeah.
and any chance? Any chance of these guys coming?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that, Chuck Fletcher in his most recent interview has expressed big time that he is willing to deal a first round pick. Now, me personally, would I want a team to give up their first round pick for a 30-year-old defenseman? Probably not. At that point, maybe, for a guy, not Seth Jones, but somebody of his age who still has a lot more years in his prime, for sure. But, desperate times call for desperate measures, like I've written in previous articles. And, Ryan Ellis is a proven right-hand shot defenseman that could come in. Now, in that same token, I threw out a couple of names also from Nashville. Nashville is looking for offensemen, and if the team who also has been rumored to be possibly looking to deal Nolan Patrick, who has been rumored to want out of Philadelphia. If they were looking for an offenseman, maybe a smaller deal in my mind would make more sense in right-hand shot defenseman Matt Benning, who Chuck Fletcher had an opportunity to sign this past offseason when he was a free agent and didn't. Yeah. And or interesting one who I know John knows a bit about, who is named Dante Fabro, who is a big first-round draft pick by Nashville, but who's sitting behind a lot of depth for sure, and isn't getting his fair share of ice time there. So definitely plus players in both of them, and some exciting players that would fill out more of the bottom of the defensive lineup, that could be proven and help this team out a little bit more.
Yeah. Does that answer your question, John?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it's like I've even heard of the Tarasenko name swirling around, because he was one of the Flyers were one of the teams that he would allow a trade to, that he would waive his clause to. So, and I don't even want to go there. So the only other thing I could think of is this: there have been rumors around Voracek as well, whether he was, whether he is going to be protected or not. John, I want to get your take on Lance and I. Both have no issues with waving goodbye to Voracek. We've been wanting that for a number of seasons now. What's your take on that, John? So we're going to turn the tables and we're going to ask a question to you.
All signs right now that I've seen are pointing to Jake Voracek not being a Philadelphia Flyer next year. How that happens remains to be seen. Philadelphia said that they're not going to protect him. So if Seattle wants that contract, have at it. You can just take him in the expansion draft. Whether that happens or not, I think is largely going to depend on what direction Seattle wants to go in, and who else they're taking. Because from a salary cap standpoint, I mean, you do have to spend a certain amount of money, and if you're not going to have many of those large contract guys, then you're going to have to pick up one or two real big ones, and Voracek at over $8 million is definitely a big one. But if they don't want to go that direction, then Philadelphia is obviously going to try and find a trade partner. The problem with a trade is that Philly is either going to have to staple a draft pick to it to get a team to take that contract, or eat money.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
one of those, I don't see many teams around the league just taking Jake Voracek at 8.25 million. Like, they're going to have to retain salary, or they're going to have to staple a draft pick in there and say, here's a little extra for doing us a favor.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
don't expect Jake Voracek to be wearing a Flyers jersey next season.
It's definitely going to be hard to get rid of him for sure. I don't think the Flyers want to get into retaining salary if traded somewhere else. I really think the best bet in order to get rid of him is to maybe persuade Seattle with a potential second or third round pick to select Voracek, because this team has no farm system as of yet. They're linked to who they're going to put their guys in to and let them play for, but they're starting from scratch. So this is a perfect instance to have another draft pick to build with that. And like you said, to get a veteran player, it's going to be a young team. A lot of guys are going to be young selected. You're going to need to hit the salary cap floor. So Voracek there for a year or two to teach some of these younger guys that are up and coming is great, and it allows you to hit the salary cap floor. And at the same time, he's going to be done in a couple of seasons, and then you can let him go and let him walk.
And I still think Jake Voracek's a very good player.
Sure.
He's still putting up points at a good rate. He's certainly not worth what his contract is right now, but he's still a very good player. On a team like Seattle, he'll probably be one of their best players if he were to go there. And, a guy who's going to give you 60 points, most likely in a full season, and very good distributor of the puck. He doesn't score much anymore, and he never really was a big goal scorer, but he's a very good passer. He distributes the puck well. And again, he's a veteran guy who's been in the league for a long time. So there's definite value if you're Seattle as a new team who's likely going to have an overall very young lineup to having a player like that. And where, the cap ceiling is not going to be an issue for them, at least in their first couple of years. You can afford to take on a contract like that and get something out of it. And I still think Voracek has some good seasons left in him. His contract's kind of a monstrosity at this point. And it's a contract that the Flyers do need to rid themselves of.
Well, fun fact is Voracek had his best years under Dave Haxtell. He had 3 consecutive 20 goals years.
Yeah, well.
He did well in Dave Haxtell's offense, so more power to him if he's picked. And with that, it just makes sense for them. The only reason the Flyers are getting rid of him because he is a good player. He's not great like his contract would assume he would be, but we already have a player just like him named Claude Giroux, and they're not going to get rid of the captain. So you got to get rid of one of them. You need somebody. A big scorer, and both of those guys are just hot potato passers when they get the puck on their stick. They need a guy that can shoot at the net. So like we've talked so long in nauseum, Steel, that we need. So
sure. Man. Let me tell you.
I see Voracek's a very good player, but he's not a lineup changer. He's not a game-changing player. He's not going to take your team from one level and pull it to the next. He's very good, but he's getting paid like he's a franchise-changing player, and that's just not what he is.
He doesn't make the other guys on the ice better around him. He just assists guys, but he doesn't make guys around him better.
Well, I think he hasn't had the guys around him that could potentially make him better, and finishers.
Yeah, he needs to play with finishers.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you on that.
Finisher.
All right, I'm with you on that.
Is not going to finish the puck.
Yeah, I agree. All right.
Sean Couturier is not a guy that's going to put in 40 or 50 goals a game or 40 or 50 goals a season. Now, you put him with potentially a number 3 overall pick in a year or two, which Seattle's going to be drafting at. And if they get a finisher type player that he can put the puck on his stick and he's going to put the puck in the back of the net, then he could be a 60 or 70 point scorer if he has somebody that's going to be willing to shoot the puck.
If Matthew Beniers is his center down the line, I think that could be setting things up really well in Seattle.
Okay, well, there you go. All right. I mean, I'm all for losing that huge contract for Philadelphia. I just don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think Seattle's going to take it, and I think the sweeten the pot deal is going to be too expensive. But that's just my opinion, and we all know that Chuck isn't listening anyway. So, but
expensive, but that gives you that $8.25 million in salary.
But I don't think that's going to all go away, though. I just don't think it's all going to go away. I think the only way that the Flyers are going to be able to make that contract go away is that they're going to have to eat some salary and sweeten the pot. There's nobody out there that's going to take it, like John said. And, it's funny that you mentioned these kinds of things because and this is what I think this is a perfect segue into the last article here, because this also, there's also some other things I want to talk about too here, but just released earlier today, you talk about the Flyers, Chuck Fletcher, being able to identify what the problems are. And one of the problems, and he's, just, is he going to be able to execute the plan? And so I think we've identified one of the major problems here, and that's the Voracek contract.
And he's making it well known that he's going to make him available, as well as he's went out and said that he dropped the ball last season and didn't replace Matt Niskanen, and he is outright to do that. And he's already said he's willing to give up a first-round pick in order to do that, his first-round pick in order to do that, and possibly much more. As well as Chuck Fletcher's went out there and said that he obviously needs to upgrade the backup goalie position, which I haven't heard of any names being linked to the Flyers yet, and that's a problem for me.
John, look, we've been able to look at this team numerous times. Mm-hmm. We've commented numerous times on this team. You put your analytical eye on this team, and do you think Chuck can do? What do you think?
I think the top priority has got to be fixing that back end. The defense has got to be the top priority, because you hung Carter Hart out to dry last year if you're the Absolutely. Philadelphia Flyers, and you got to remember Carter Hart is still a very young goaltender, and the kind of hit mentally and confidence wise that last season, that could have a long-term effect on him. And that is not what you want if you're the Philadelphia Flyers, because this is the kid, this is your goalie. This is the kid that after 25 years, you finally got the franchise guy. And if you're going to ruin him when he's 22 years old, you cannot do that if you're the Philadelphia Flyers. They need a strong veteran backup. This is not a great year for backup goaltenders. Last year's free agent class was much better when it comes to veteran goaltending. This year's is pretty weak in that category. So yeah, that's going to be something that isn't going to be an easy, fix. But to me, the top priority has got to be making that defense at least serviceable. The Flyers' goals against per game were the worst in the NHL last season. And granted, there were times where the goaltenders didn't play great, but a lot of that, and I covered a lot of Flyers games and watched a lot of Flyers games this past year. A lot of that was on the defense, where you were just seeing them giving up 35, 40 shots in a game, point blank chances in front, defensemen running around, having no clue where they were supposed to be on the ice.
No
forwards
physicality.
Not back checking. Forwards not back checking. That's another thing that you can't have if you're going to be a strong defensive team. And to me, the top priority is just going to be finding a way to keep more pucks out of the net, because they're not going to make the playoffs if they can't do that.
It's funny that you mentioned that, John, that was an issue with the team for the last couple of years, if you must know the truth. Okay. And that was one thing that, I even remember Ed Snyder talking about, man, we need to, get the goals against down. We need to get this down. We need to this, we need to that. And here we are, years later, still talking about the same bloody thing here with the fly. I mean, I'm just going to go put the needle on the record. All right.
Well, it doesn't make sense. Their drafting doesn't make sense in my mind. They go out and get a coach in AV whose system is based off defensive-minded players. It's successful when you have a good defensive core and you have great back checking and offensemen that are willing to get back into the play. And what do they keep drafting? And is offensive-minded defensemen who are more worried about scoring goals than coming back in their back end and defending. And the thing about that is we'll transition back to, the missing opportunities in going out and getting players here for Chuck Fletcher. He drafts well and it at times, but it's not the players that fit the coach you hired. But at the same time, he has no logical way of acquiring new talent, in my mind. Okay, his biggest signings, in recent history with Minnesota were who? They were Ryan Suter and they were Zach Parise. But both of those guys wanted to go back home. Mm-hmm. They wanted to go to Minnesota because that's where they were born. That's where they played minor hockey. That's where they grew up. That's where their family is. Yeah. That was no big draft, or that was no big signings in my mind for him. That wasn't a credit to him. Okay. But if you look at what he was doing with, let's say, the Seth Jones saga that was going on here. Okay. He lost out on that. And why, in my mind? Because he hasn't brought in anybody for that players to look at and say, hey, there's some guys there that I want to go play with. These guys are not buying into this AV system. They're not exciting. They're not going out there and drawing other players to want to come in and play. And most of the thing is the Chicago Blackhawks. Okay, the Chicago Blackhawks wanted and still want Seth Jones, hot and heavy, right? Mm-hmm. So what did they do? They went out and they got rid of and were able to get rid of a 37-year-old defenseman in Duncan Keith, who is well overpaid for his play. Great three-time cup-winning defenseman in his heyday, but he's well past his prime. They were able to get rid of that contract and that player in order to create room for Seth Jones. And not only that, in that trade, what did they do? They knew that they were going to need him to get re-signed, right? They wanted to not only trade for him, but have him want to re-sign there. So what did they do? They went out and got his 24-year-old younger brother, Caleb Jones, in the trade, and a third-round pick coming back for him for a 37-year-old defenseman, guys. Yep. This is the type of trade. If you were so hot and heavy after Seth Jones, like Chuck Fletcher was, this is the type of thing that you needed to do. If you knew you wanted to have him re-sign here, then why not go out and create a plan like Chicago did? They orchestrated a perfect plan to get their player. And even if they don't come to agreement with Seth Jones and to bring him in, what have they now done? They now have created the cap space to go out there and sign Dougie Hamilton, David Savard, Adam Larson, or Alec Martinez and bring them in. Yeah. It's not rocket science, guys. It's really not. But Chuck Fletcher he can sign guys. He can re-sign players to good contracts. I think he really, some have not been, but, I think Travis Konechny, he fell on his face a little bit, but for where he was, he signed him to a good deal. He can bring back players, and to good contracts. And hopefully he does that with Carter Hart and doesn't give him a mint when his play faltered this year. But he can't seal the deal in my mind. And that's what this article is about.
You see, John, you see what we have to deal with here, man. Okay. You see the kind of, look, we have talked so many times about this. Look, they had a presser the other day, right? Why? For what reason? They didn't announce anything. There was no trade.
No retirements.
There was no retirements. There was no buyouts. They just had a presser. like for what?
To say, hey, we're trying.
Okay, look.
Boy.
Let me ask you a question, John. Do you think this would fly in Boston?
No, what's happening in Boston already is borderline doesn't fly, and the Bruins make the playoffs every year, and it borderline doesn't fly because we're not winning cups. So no, this would not go over well. There'd be riots outside of TD Garden waiting for the GM to come out.
Why can't we hire a GM like you guys? Why can't we hire a GM that's going to make deals like this? What? Please explain to me what is so difficult about hiring a guy that knows how to close the deal. What?
I've never been a big Chuck Fletcher fan myself. So even going back to his Minnesota days, I was never really high on Fletcher. So
you know what? Look, I'm just going to say this. We got the cold and scratchies. Okay, they're not warm and fuzzies. They're cold and scratchies. At least I do about this upcoming off season. I haven't seen a peep out of them. The peep that I did see, and it sounded like you guys ever watched the Charlie Brown specials?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know who Charlie Brown is, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right. And in those specials, Charlie Brown, in one of the specials, he has to talk to his teacher on the phone, or his teacher in school. And his teacher it's just an arbitrary sound.
Womp, 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 womp.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm watching this presser the other day with Chuck and the assistant GM, and that's all I heard was that Charlie Brown teacher, wah, 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 in the background. I didn't hear anything about what the team was doing. I don't like to end on a negative note. Okay, so we're going to try to end on a positive note. We'll try, okay? Hey. John, thank you very much for coming on, man. We
really appreciate it. Can I just say one last thing about finding a top grade or like A grade defenseman?
Yes, please do.
Probably going to have to do it in the draft. Those are generally drafted. It's very hard to get one another way. If you look at the top D-men in the league right now, like Victor Hedman, drafted by Tampa Bay. Cale Makar, drafted by Colorado. Charlie McAvoy, drafted by Boston. John Carlson, drafted by Washington.
Yeah.
Drew Doughty, drafted by LA. Duncan Keith, back in his heyday, drafted by Chicago. Those kinds of players, Philadelphia has got to be looking for them in the draft because it's very hard to get them any other way. So if I'm Chuck Fletcher, that's got to be your draft focus.
Yeah.
If Seattle doesn't take Ryan Graves, they're freaking crazy. Oh my gosh, he's one of the best, and he's overshadowed there with Maker. But if they don't take him, if he's left exposed, they're freaking crazy. He's one of the best young defensemen in the league.
Absolutely,
I agree. Well, like I said, man, we try to end on a positive note. So, John, thank you very much for coming on here, man. We really appreciate your insight, and it was really interesting to get your take because I know you're a Boston guy, and Boston's kind of the mortal enemy, and I get it, I get it, but you have to have a mutual respect for the opposition.
Oh yeah,
you have to know the opposition. You know what I mean? And it's great to have your insight because you have such great knowledge. So thank you very much for hopping on the show. Definitely. Why don't you tell the folks where we can find you, where we can get you, where we can follow you, and all that other stuff?
Yeah, just search Off the Wall Hockey on YouTube. Should be the first to come up. Twitter is Off the Wall Hawk. Just take the EY off of hockey. Facebook, just search Off the Wall Hockey, and on Instagram, OTW Hockey on there as well. And obviously, SteelFlyers.com/link/Off the Wall Hockey, where you can see all my posts there as well. So thanks for having me, guys. This was an awesome show. It was great talking hockey with you both.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. What do you think, Lance? Should we have him back on again?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would, be willing to join you anytime you need me as well.
Awesome.
Good talking hockey with another intelligent, hockey fan and, hockey mind there. So great to have you on and, come join us again. So
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you very much. We really appreciate y'all checking us out. Just remember, folks, you can check us out online. You can check us out on YouTube. You can check us out on Twitter. Please hit the like and subscribe. I'm your co-host, SteelFlyers, and our great and wonderful host,
Lance Green.
Where can we get you, Lance?
Sure. Anywhere on the internet, pretty much. My articles are always on flyersnittygritty.com. They also get picked up by Bleacher Report. And all my stuff is on YouTube here and SteelFlyers.com as well. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at LNGBASSIST, the numbers 39.
There you have it, folks. Another great episode. We had a really super guest, John from Off the Wall Hockey, joining us. 3 great articles from the great writer extraordinaire. And there you have it, folks. Well, thank you all very much for watching the Hockey Writers Inc. And we'll be back next time with another great episode. We'll see you next time.